Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the weekly wildcard draft, where I take a look at what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward for the next 4 to 5 game weeks. And the next 4 to 5 game weeks are actually pretty interesting because Game Week 32 is a pretty big blank game week where several teams don't play, and then in return those same teams that don't play in 32, most of them play in Game Week 34, which is going to be a massive double game week where you have twice the chances to score. So this weekly wildcard draft will take into account the fact that you have a free hit left and you're going to use it in Game Week 32. But I'm also going to talk a bit about which teams to target if you don't have a free hit, and also if you have a bench boost, how you can use your bench boost in Game Week 34 as well. Because this main team is going to be without a bench boost and with free hit, which is currently what I have. But anyways, let's move along to the weekly wildcard draft. This is pretty simple. I draft 15 players to make a full squad, and the first player I pick is the player I deem the most important player to have currently in FPL, while the 15th player I pick is like the final player that I sort of put into this squad. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for you guys anyway. If you don't have a wildcard like me, it's going to be interesting for you guys to see who I think are the best players to have currently, and the players that are not as important to have but are still good options. So let's just move right ahead with the number 1 pick, and it's the same as last week. It is Erling Braut Haaland from Norway, just like me. I'm Norwegian as well, if you didn't know, if you couldn't tell from the slight accent, I guess, and the blonde hair and everything. But anyways, Haaland, he has blonde hair as well, and he is really good. Scored 2 goals in his return, and for anyone that didn't captain him, like me, you were sort of sad to see it, but yeah, Haaland was amazing once again. Scored a bicycle kick, scored a header from a really good Kevin De Bruyne cross. So Haaland just looks amazing, and he has that amazing double game week against Fulham away and West Ham at home. So that's even a prime candidate for triple captaincy. If you still have your triple captaincy left, I think Game Week 34 might be the week to do it with Haaland. You might get a massive score. If he scores a hat-trick in both games, which he could do feasibly, you'd get the biggest triple captain score of all time. So it's really interesting just to have Haaland. He's also the favored captain option in Game Week 31 against Leicester at home. So amazing option. He's going to play, most likely he's going to play most of the matches, but they do have Bayern Munich. You got to take that into account as well. They play Bayern Munich on each side of Leicester at home, but I still think he's going to play pretty much every match for Pep Guardiola in this run-in, because they need to win every game in the league, and yeah, I think he's going to play in most games, even though he's been out with injury pretty not too long ago. But Haaland is still a must-have in your FPL team. Second guy is Mohamed Salah. I'm going to pick him number 2. He was number 7 last week, and he jumps up because he scored against Arsenal. He did miss a penalty, however, which might affect his chances of keeping the penalty-taking duties, because he also missed a penalty against Bournemouth. So I think he and Klopp are going to talk about penalties going forward. So who knows if he's going to keep penalties or not, but that's not really why you have Salah. Salah, he hasn't scored a single penalty this season, and he's still one of the top goal-scoring players in the whole game, even though he has like sort of a bad season for Salah. He's usually even better than he is now, but he's really good. And as you can see from the fixtures, Leeds away, Nottingham Forest at home, West Ham away, and then Spurs and Fulham at home in Game Week 34. Just amazing fixtures for Salah. He usually scores a lot of goals against Leeds as well, so I think it's vital to get him as soon as possible, really. I'm looking into buying him myself in my own team, so I think Salah is great as well. Moving on, third pick, another mainstay, Kaoru Mitoma. Brighton midfielders have been a must to have. Pretty much have 2 Brighton midfielders at least. It seems like a must-have currently. And for me, Mitoma is the best option. He just keeps getting involved in the big moments. He keeps getting goals. He should have had a penalty last time against Spurs as well. And he just finds a way to get goals and assists or anything like that, or winning penalties as well. He's really good at that as well. So I think Mitoma is the best out of the 3 Brighton midfielders, even though it's really close because all 3 are really good. But Mitoma, you can't really go wrong. And likewise, you can't really go wrong with McAllister either. Brighton, probably they could have had 3 penalties against Spurs, and all of those would have been taken by McAllister. And he's still playing as a number 10, and he's still getting forward and shooting a couple shots, having some nice assist opportunities, and then the penalties on top of that makes him just a great option. And Brighton as well. Just amazing, especially if you can free hit in Game Week 32. Tripling up on Brighton is a no-brainer, really, because they're so cheap and they're so good. Brighton are one of the best teams in the league, even though they lost to Spurs. They're still really good, so McAllister is a great pick. Next up, Jack Grealish. He was also picked in last game week squad, so this is not just because he scored against Southampton. I had him last week as number 8. Now he's the number 5 pick for this weekly wildcard draft. And it's for a good reason, because Foden is still out and Grealish has just made his the spot his own as well. Like Grealish even played when Foden was healthy, so he's going to keep his spot. He's in the best form of his City career, and he just looks really good. And it seems like Pep Guardiola trusts him a lot. So Grealish is just an amazing option. I know a lot of people are looking to bring him in, and I think he's really close. Like, he could have been selected ahead of Mitoma and McAllister as well, but I think they're pretty much even. They're really good midfield picks, so it just leaves one midfield pick that I'm not as certain about, but I'll get to him later. First, we got to go with our first defender, and that is Kieran Trippier. He was 3rd pick last week, but now that the double game week is moving closer, he drops down a little bit, and he's still just a great option, because even though he doesn't have a double game week in 34, he plays against Southampton, and if you don't have a free hit, he's also a must, because he has a game week 32 fixture. So Trippier has just been reliable all season, and don't really need to say much more. He's just so good, and Newcastle are so good as well. They're in really good form at the moment. So moving on, we have another City player tripling up on City with John Stones. A lot of people seem to be hesitant to pick a defender from City because they keep rotating. At least that's what people think they are going to do. But I think their back four, or the 4 most defensive players in their team, are pretty settled. Of course, you have Ederson in goal, but I'm not even counting him. But just they keep playing Akanji, Stones, Diaz, and Ake as like the 4 defenders in the team, and I think that's going to continue. And especially Stones is so good and so important for them, and he has goal threat. He's slightly more nailed than Ake. That's why I sort of prefer him, even though he's a bit more expensive than Ake. I still think Stones is slightly better in terms of just being nailed. And yeah, City, like I said, with Haaland and Grealish, great fixtures, especially with the free hit in 32. Fantastic double game week fixture, and we know what Stones can do in a double game week from a couple of seasons ago. He had a goal, had some clean sheets. City usually concede some stupid goals, but you gotta imagine that they will tighten up, especially if the games are close. He's going to get a clean sheet, so yeah, Stones is also a great defensive option. And another new boy in the team. As you can see, both McAllister and Stones are in green. That means that they weren't in the team last week, but they are back in the team now. They are in the team. McAllister is back, and Stones is, for the first time, I've selected him in the weekly wildcard draft, and I think he's a season keeper, really, because he's so good. Moving on. Another single game week player in game week 34, and it is Alexander Isak. He does, however, probably have a double game week in 36. Newcastle and Brighton are most likely going to double in game week 36, or at some point at least, because they have a fixture that hasn't been rescheduled yet. So Isak's going to be really good for that. Even if you bench boost in game week 34, he has Southampton at home. He can score a lot of goals in that game as well. And Isak has just been in amazing form lately. He started last game after Wilson scored twice against West Ham, and then next game Isak comes in and starts, and that shows you how good Isak is. And I think now finally Eddie Howe has realized he can play Isak and Wilson together, and that's what he's going to do going forward. And Isak is just a must-have at the current time, because Newcastle are amazing lately. They are going forward and scoring a lot of goals. And Isak is always in amongst the goals as well. So for 6.6 or 6.7 or something that he costs now, he's also a great pick, even though he doesn't have a double game week in 34. Moving on, we have De Gea in goal. Man United with sort of injury hit the last 2 game weeks, with first Luke Shaw and then Marcus Rashford being out injured. So the reliable Man United options are fewer and far between. But De Gea seems like the most nailed, or like the safest guy to have. He's going to start in goal every single game week that he plays. And they have an okay double game week. Like, they don't have the best double game week either. They have Aston Villa at home and Brighton away, but still, De Gea seems like the best goalkeeper to have currently, in my opinion. And Nottingham Forest away as well, decent fixture, and Fulham, who don't really create much at all in game week 33. So De Gea looks decent as well. He's also new, as you can see, with the green. Moving on, we have, once again, Robertson is back in the squad. He was selected with number 11 last week, and although they conceded 2 goals against Arsenal, that was expected. You expected Liverpool to concede against Arsenal, but they showed earlier in the season, just a couple game weeks ago, I think they had like 4 or 5 clean sheets in a row when they faced easier opposition, and now they have really easy matches against Leeds, Nottingham Forest, West Ham, and then the double game week with Spurs and Fulham. So I think Liverpool defense might actually be, even though they are such a leaky defense, I still think they are pretty good going forward. Robertson as well, I slightly pick him ahead of Trent. I think the slightly lower price and also the fact that he's so offensive, he's so far up into the pitch, and he had a really good shooting chance as well against Arsenal that he didn't convert, but I think Robertson's a great pick. You could also go with either Van Dijk or Trent if you want to go with a more expensive Liverpool option, but you can also go with, I've done the double up, or I'll get to that eventually. I thought that was the next pick actually, but he's coming up pretty soon. Konate, that's the spoiler. But first, Bruno Fernandes, still picking him. He has been really disappointing since picking him up for like a couple game weeks ago, because he's been playing in sort of like a defensive midfielder role as a number 6, as a deep line playmaker for Man United, and that's because Casemiro has been suspended and Eriksen has been injured. But now it seems like both Casemiro and Eriksen are going to come back, and Man United haven't really looked that good lately, and especially with Rashford out, they need Fernandes' offensive prowess going forward. Fernandes obviously still on penalties for Man United, and even though he played like as a deep line playmaker last game against Everton, he created a lot of chances and could have had some assists and had decent underlying numbers. So I think Fernandes will finally prove that he's a good fancy asset going forward, and I think you should have him. It's still like up in the air. Who knows if Rashford is fit? Of course, this is Rashford rather than Fernandes as the final midfielder. But the other 4 midfielders I think are locks, and then Fernandes. If Rashford is still out, if he is out for Gameweek 34 as well, Rashford, you could do the triple up with Brighton midfielders. You could also do an Arsenal midfielder like Martinelli or Saka, even though they don't have double game weeks. They have difficult fixtures. They are such a good team. You could go with someone like Martinelli, who is the highest scoring midfielder in the game currently. So those are some decent options you can go with, but I think Fernandes will finally repay the faith that I put him in, at least. So I think he's a good option. And then we move on to Konate. I thought Konate was the one after Robertson, but I think Konate is also a really good underrated option. He is 4.8 in fantasy, really cheap. And like I said, Liverpool, easy fixtures, likely to keep some clean sheets, even though they are leaky defensively. They're going to concede sometimes, but still, they could also score going forward. And that's the thing with Konate. He's shown that he can come up for corners or free kicks and header in a couple goals. He was really close to scoring against Arsenal as well, tried to chest it into goal, but a fantastic save from Ramsdale saved the attempt from Konate. And I think Konate will get some goals. He showed that last year in the Champions League. He scored like 2 or 3 or 4 goals even. He scored a couple goals in the knockout stages as well. So I think Konate is underrated in terms of both scoring goals and potentially keeping clean sheets as well if Liverpool do like they did earlier and tighten up against lesser opposition. So yeah, Konate is also great for that price. Like I said now a couple times. But yeah, I think he's a great option. People are also going to be a bit worried about rotation. They think Matip and Gomez might play, but Konate is clearly potentially even the best centre-back for Liverpool at the moment, because Van Dijk is struggling a bit defensively this season. He hasn't been to his best. So Konate, I think he's firmly in the starting 11 for Liverpool, and even if he isn't, we have such a strong team, such strong defenders that you can survive with him on the bench. And the good thing about Konate is he's sort of like a 90-0 man. Like he either plays 90 minutes or he plays 0 minutes. He doesn't come on for the last like 10-15 minutes like someone like Nathan Ake would do. Konate is usually, he either plays 60 plus or he doesn't play at all, which is really good for Fantasy Premier League. And yeah, since we have such good defenders, we can afford to do that. Moving on, the final defender. This is one of those guys that could come on for Konate if Konate doesn't play, and that is Pervis Estupiñán. He's been in this weekly wildcard draft for a while now, and I still think he's the best defensive option for Brighton, even though Dunk has outplayed him lately. Dunk scored last game, scored a header. I think Estupiñán is just so far up the pitch. He's getting a lot of chances to cross, a lot of close assists. He has some shot attempts is the word I'm looking for. He has some shot attempts as well, Estupiñán, and sooner or later he has to score or assist. I just got to keep the faith in Estupiñán. But still, I'm sort of losing a bit of faith, and that's why he's dropping further and further down the list every time he doesn't return and every time Brighton concede, because they do concede quite a few goals, even though they score a lot of goals as well. So, but Estupiñán, I think, is a great option. It's also someone you can just bench whenever you need to, really, because we still have a really strong squad. Because the last two guys are also in that same vein. Two people that you can just bench because you're not going to start them. One of them, Sam Greenwood from Leeds. He doesn't really play for Leeds. They have so many offensive talents that he is surplus to requirements there really. But he is 4.0, so he's the cheapest possible player you can have as an outfielder in FPL. And yeah, you can just bench him every week really. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Greenwood. Same with Everson as well on the bench. 3.8 starting goalkeeper for Leicester. You don't really need them. But yeah, that's the whole squad. You have some really decent bench candidates. That's the thing with Greenwood as well that I didn't mention, that you kind of want to play with 5 attacking players every game week now. Because a lot of people have had to bench, last game week, for example, a lot of people had to bench. They had a huge benching dilemma with some really good players that they had to bench. Some people benched Fernandes, some people benched Brighton midfielder. And those guys are just really good. That's why they're in the team still. So I think you should play all these attacking players every game week. But the thing about Greenwood is that, yeah, if you do have a bench boost and you want to use your bench boost, then obviously Greenwood isn't a good option. So I think if you have a bench boost, I know one of the FPL Scope crew, Kimo, who is on vacation in Egypt right now, he has the wildcard left, he has the free hit left, and he has the bench boost left. So for him, I do some small tweaks to the squad, and I think you can downgrade Robertson to someone like for example, you can downgrade Fernandes to a cheaper midfielder. You can even remove Estupinian as well, so you can have triple Brighton midfield, and then you can have March in for Fernandes. You can have Lisandro Martinez in for Estupinian, and then you can have some other defender for Robertson, someone like Pedro Porro or someone like that who can score offensively or do well offensively. And you can also then, with the money you get from downgrading Robertson and Fernandes, you can upgrade Greenwood to someone like Darwin Núñez if he plays now. You can have him for the double game week, or yeah, you can move the money around a little bit. And Everson as well. Everton at home, I think that's sort of the best second goalkeeper option you can have, sorta. Like Everson, Leicester are not really that good, but he's so cheap, so I would just go with the cheaper goalkeeper. That's my preferred option anyway. So that's what you can do if you have the bench boost, like Chemo does. You have some really good options there. Especially if Rashford is fit, then it makes a lot of sense. You could just have Rashford rather than Fernandes. You can also, if Shaw is fit, he can also get in for Estupinian. Or not for Robertson. That's the thing. If, let's say, I'm rambling a bit now, but I'm collecting my thoughts. If Rashford is fit and Shaw is fit, you can do Robertson to Shaw, you can do Fernandes to Rashford, and then you can do Greenwood to Darwin Núñez. And then you have a 15-man squad for Game Week 34 where you can bench boost with a lot of points. But like I said, with Chemo or with Haaland at the start, I think triple captaining Game Week 34 is also a great option. So you could still go with this squad and just have Haaland and then try to load up the bench eventually at some point and just use the bench boost. I don't know. I don't really like the bench boost option or the bench boost chip at all, really. I hope they remove it for next season, but that's a whole other topic. But before we leave this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the players that dropped out. As you can see, there are some spots right over me here that are not filled in. A couple picks that were not picked this week. And that is Rashford, Watkins, Chilwell, Ederson, Porro, and Andreas. I'm just going to go through each of them. Rashford obviously is because of his injury. At the current time, I'm recording this on Tuesday. I don't really know how long Rashford will be out. If he is back for Game Week 34, then you can easily have Rashford in for Fernandes and potentially upgrade Greenwood to someone like Watkins. So you have the strikers or the forward players that you need, the attacking players that you need for the next few game weeks until Rashford is fit. But yeah, Rashford and Watkins, really close to getting into the team, but just the way that it's structured, I wanted to have Fernandes in, and that means I have to sacrifice Watkins, because Watkins has decent fixtures now, but in Game Week 34 he has a really tough fixture. But you could also do that other option. If you have Watkins, I think, if you currently have Watkins, I think you should just keep him until Game Week 34, and then you can switch him for a Liverpool attacking option, whether that's Diogo Jota, or if it's Firmino even, or if it's Darwin Núñez. You have a pretty easy swap there for not that much more money. So just leave some money in the bank and you can do that as well. Chilwell drops out as well. Chelsea have really difficult fixtures. Chilwell was dropped last game. He came on and did really well when he came on, but I don't know about Chelsea under Lampard. They lost against Wolverhampton. Not a good sign, really. So I don't know. Chilwell or Reece James are still decent options. You could pick them rather than someone like Robertson. If you don't like the Liverpool defense double up, you can remove Robertson for someone like that and get some more money, I guess. But Chilwell drops out because Chelsea have difficult fixtures. Ederson as well. Rather go with Stones this time. I feel like he's a better option. Ederson doesn't really get much points in terms of bonus or anything like that. Doesn't get that many saves, so I think Stones has some attacking threat, at least slightly more than Ederson, who could do an assist here and there, but Stones I think has slightly more attacking threat, and he's just about as nailed as well as Ederson, so I think Stones is just preferable to Ederson. Pedro Porro, like I said, don't really mind that option either. I think Spurs are decent. They don't have the best Game Week 34 fixture though, so that's sort of why I'm not leaning towards him. I'd rather have a lot of double game week players in Game Week 34, as you can see. And then finally we have Andreas Pereira, who was also like the cheap option last week when I had 3 strikers. And Andreas, now I go with a more expensive midfield, and that's why I've changed from Andreas to Greenwood, really, to have even more money in the bank and yeah, to have 5 midfielders, because I feel like 5 midfielders is sort of a must currently. So yeah, those are the guys that are left out of the team. That is the team in its entirety. I hope you enjoyed this video. So if you do, you can like this video. You can also subscribe to the channel. That would be very much appreciated. And yeah, we'll be back pretty soon with the FPL School podcasts. Kevin and I will record that later on today, so that will release tomorrow, Wednesday. Or Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow. So yeah, look forward to that. And yeah, take care. Goodbye. See you next time.